A nurse stayed late to comfort a lonely patient, not knowing he was a widowed millionaire. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's dive into today's story. It starts on a cold, rainy evening at Westbridge Private Hospital. Emily, a young nurse, was about to wrap up her shift when she noticed a patient who hadn't had any visitors. The hospital was quiet, the kind of quiet that settled into your bones. Her shift had been long, filled with the usual routine, taking vitals, checking charts, making sure everyone was comfortable. But tonight, something felt different. As Emily walked down the sterile white hallways toward the ICU, she saw him, Samuel Wright, an elderly man lying in the bed with his eyes closed, his features softened by sleep. There was something in his stillness that made him seem different from the others. She had seen many patients come and go, but something about him stirred her curiosity. Samuel had been in a coma for a while after a serious car accident, and though he had been stable, no one had visited him. His family had stopped coming months ago, and the hospital staff had almost forgotten him. Emily had only heard his name in passing, Samuel Wright, the reclusive millionaire. But to her, he was just another patient in need of care. She had no idea who he really was. She approached the bedside, carefully adjusting his blanket and making sure the floor was in place. The machines beeped steadily, their rhythmic sound filling the room. She couldn't help but feel a pang of sympathy. Loneliness had a way of creeping in even when you were surrounded by others, and it was clear to her that Samuel's loneliness was palpable. His eyes fluttered open for a brief moment, and he looked at her. Emily froze, unsure of whether he was really awake or just stirring in his sleep. His voice was weak, but he spoke clearly. "Who are you?" he asked, his voice raspy but warm. "I'm Emily, your nurse," she replied softly, adjusting his pillow. "You've been through quite a lot. How are you feeling?" Samuel gave her a faint smile, his eyes betraying a hint of sadness. "Better, I think," he said, his gaze shifting toward the window. "But it's been a long road. Thank you for staying with me." Emily smiled back, feeling a connection, a simple human connection that she rarely had the chance to form with patients. She was used to giving her care, her time, but rarely did she ever receive any acknowledgement in return. And certainly, not from someone like Samuel. "It's no problem," she said, sitting down beside him. "I know it's tough. You don't have to go through it alone." They sat in comfortable silence for a few moments. Emily had a quiet, unspoken understanding that this patient needed more than just medical attention. He needed someone to talk to. In a world of machines and beeping monitors, she offered him the simplest thing, her presence. As she began to talk to him about her day, her own struggles, and dreams, she noticed the way his eyes softened as if the weight of his years had been lifted, even if only for a short time. She wasn't aware that this small act of kindness would change both of their lives forever. Little did Emily know, Samuel was a man of wealth and influence, but he had been hiding away from the world after the loss of his wife. He hadn't wanted the attention, and he certainly didn't want anyone to pity him. But in Emily's eyes, he wasn't a millionaire. He was just a lonely man who needed someone to care for him, even for a moment. What Emily didn't realize, as she spoke to him and shared her stories, was that Samuel was listening closely, not just to the words she spoke, but to the kindness in her voice, the sincerity in her actions. And in that moment, something stirred inside him, a realization that he hadn't felt in years. There was still goodness in the world, still warmth. And for the first time in a long time, Samuel felt like he mattered. "I'm Emily, your nurse," she said softly, adjusting Samuel's pillow. "You've been through quite a lot. How are you feeling?" Samuel gave her a faint smile, his eyes betraying a hint of sadness. "Better, I think," he said, his gaze shifting toward the window. "But it's been a long road. Thank you for staying with me." Emily smiled back, feeling a connection, a simple human connection that she rarely had the chance to form with patients. She was used to giving her care, her time, but rarely did she ever receive any acknowledgement in return. And certainly, not from someone like Samuel. "It's no problem," she said, sitting down beside him. "I know it's tough. You don't have to go through it alone." They sat in comfortable silence for a few moments. Emily had a quiet, unspoken understanding that this patient needed more than just medical attention. He needed someone to talk to. In a world of machines and beeping monitors, she offered him the simplest thing, her presence. As she began to talk to him about her day, her own struggles, and dreams, she noticed the way his eyes softened as if the weight of his years had been lifted, even if only for a short time. She wasn't aware that this small act of kindness would change both of their lives forever. Little did Emily know, Samuel was a man of wealth and influence, but he had been hiding away from the world after the loss of his wife. He hadn't wanted the attention, and he certainly didn't want anyone to pity him. But in Emily's eyes, he wasn't a millionaire. He was just a lonely man who needed someone to care for him, even for a moment. What Emily didn't realize, as she spoke to him and shared her stories, was that Samuel was listening closely, not just to the words she spoke, but to the kindness in her voice, the sincerity in her actions. And in that moment, something stirred inside him, a realization that he hadn't felt in years. There was still goodness in the world, still warmth. And for the first time in a long time, Samuel felt like he mattered. The days passed by, and Emily continued her nightly routine of caring for Samuel. Every evening, she would adjust his sheets, check his vitals, and speak to him as if he were fully awake. Samuel responded, sometimes with words, other times with just a soft squeeze of her hand. He began to look forward to her visits, the warmth she brought into the sterile, cold room. He would listen to her, talk about her dreams of opening a small art gallery, the passion she had for painting, and the struggles she faced in trying to pay her mother's medical bills. It was strange how Samuel found himself so captivated by her. She was like a breath of fresh air in a world that had grown stale with grief and loss. He had everything, wealth, power, and influence, but it meant nothing to him without love, without connection. One evening, as Emily checked on him, she noticed something different. He looked at her with more intensity than he ever had before. His eyes were clearer, his voice stronger when he spoke. "Emily," he said, his voice rough but sincere. "I've been thinking a lot lately. You've been so kind to me, even though you have your own struggles. I want to help you." Emily was taken aback by his words. "Help me? I don't understand." Samuel took a deep breath, his face softening. "You've been struggling to make ends meet. I know that. And I know you have a dream to open a gallery, to do what you love. I want to help you make that dream a reality." Emily stood there, shocked. "But why would you do that? I'm just your nurse. I've been taking care of you because it's my job." Samuel shook his head. "No, Emily. You've been taking care of me because you care. And that's something I haven't had in a long time. I want to give you a chance to live your dream. I can help you with the funding, with the space, everything you need." Emily's mind raced. Was this really happening? She had never imagined that someone like Samuel, someone so powerful, would ever offer to help her in such a way. But a part of her hesitated. "I don't know, Samuel. I appreciate it, really, but I don't feel like I deserve something like that. You don't even know me that well." Samuel smiled warmly, his eyes softening with understanding. "I know enough. I know that you have a heart full of kindness, and that's worth more than any amount of money. You deserve to chase your dreams, Emily. You deserve to find happiness again." Emily felt a lump form in her throat. She had been so focused on surviving, on just getting by, that she had forgotten what it felt like to truly live. And now, this man, this stranger, was offering her a chance to change everything. The next few days were a whirlwind of emotions for Emily. She didn't know how to process what Samuel had offered. But as the days passed, she realized that this was more than just financial help. It was an opportunity for a fresh start, a chance to believe in herself again. She spent hours going over her plans, her dreams, and what it would take to turn them into reality. And for the first time in a long time, she felt hopeful. But just as she was starting to believe in this new possibility, a thought crossed her mind. What if Samuel's kindness was just a way to ease his own loneliness? What if he didn't really care about her dreams, but just wanted to ease his guilt over being so wealthy while so many others struggled? Emily's doubts crept in, but she pushed them aside. For now, she would take a leap of faith. She owed it to herself. And maybe, just maybe, she owed it to Samuel too. Emily stood in front of the hospital room, her heart racing with a mix of excitement and uncertainty. Samuel's offer had turned her world upside down. A part of her wanted to believe that she deserved the opportunity he was giving her, but another part of her couldn't help but question his motives. After all, how could someone so rich and powerful care about someone like her, a nurse struggling to make ends meet? She shook her head, trying to push the doubts away. She had a dream, a real dream, and for the first time in years, she felt like she had a chance to make it come true. She looked back at Samuel, who was still lying in bed, his eyes watching her with a quiet intensity. "I'll think about it," she said softly, her voice betraying the uncertainty she felt inside. "You don't have to decide right now," Samuel replied, his voice warm and reassuring. "Take your time. I'm offering this because I believe in you, Emily. I see the way you care for people, the way you put others before yourself. You have a good heart, and you deserve to follow your dreams." Emily nodded, unable to find the right words to express what she was feeling. She turned to leave, but as she reached the door, she heard Samuel's voice again. "And Emily," he said, his tone serious yet kind, "don't let fear hold you back. You've been running for so long. You deserve to find peace and happiness. Whatever you decide, I'm here for you." Emily paused, her hand on the door handle. She looked back at him, a mixture of gratitude and confusion in her eyes. "Thank you," she said, her voice barely above a whisper, before stepping out of the room and into the quiet hall. That night, Emily couldn't sleep. She kept replaying Samuel's words in her mind. "You deserve to find peace and happiness." The phrase echoed in her ears, making her heart ache with longing. She had always put others first, never allowing herself to dream too big. But now, for the first time, someone was offering her the chance to follow her heart, to do something she loved. The next morning, Emily arrived at the hospital early, her mind made up. She had made her decision. As she walked down the hall to Samuel's room, she felt a sense of calm wash over her. She had faced so many challenges in her life, but this felt different. This was her chance to take control, to choose her own path. When she entered Samuel's room, he looked up at her with a knowing smile. "I've made my decision," Emily said, her voice steady with conviction. Samuel raised an eyebrow, waiting for her to continue. "I want to take your offer. I want to chase my dream, Samuel. I want to open my gallery and do what I love. And I'm not going to let fear hold me back anymore." Samuel's eyes softened, and he nodded in approval. "I knew you would," he said, his voice filled with pride. "You're stronger than you realize, Emily. I'm proud of you for choosing yourself." As Emily walked out of the hospital that day, she felt lighter than she had in years. She was finally taking control of her life, and it felt like the beginning of something new. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of activity. Samuel's financial support allowed Emily to rent a small space in the city, and she began to gather the materials she would need for her gallery. She spent hours sketching ideas, choosing the pieces she wanted to display, and planning every detail. It was hard work, but it felt like a dream come true. Every morning, she woke up excited to start her day, eager to see her vision slowly coming to life. During this time, Samuel's support was unwavering. He would check in with her regularly, asking about her progress and offering encouragement whenever she needed it. He had kept his word, and Emily could see how much he truly believed in her. But as the gallery started to take shape, Emily realized that she was beginning to care for Samuel in a way she hadn't expected. Their bond had grown stronger, and she found herself looking forward to their conversations more and more. It wasn't just the financial support that had drawn her to him. It was his kindness, his understanding, and the way he made her feel seen and heard. She had always felt invisible to those around her, but Samuel saw her. For the first time in her life, she felt like she mattered. But just as Emily was starting to settle into this new chapter of her life, she was faced with another difficult choice. As the gallery neared completion, she realized that Samuel was no longer just her benefactor. He was becoming something more, someone she was starting to fall for. She wasn't sure if he felt the same way, but she knew that her feelings for him were growing stronger with each passing day. One afternoon, as she was hanging a painting in the gallery, her phone buzzed. It was a message from Samuel. "I'd like to see you tonight," it read. Emily's heart skipped a beat. She hadn't seen him outside the hospital in weeks, and she wasn't sure what he wanted to talk about. She read the message again, her thoughts racing. Could this be the moment when everything changed? She had no idea, but one thing was certain, she was ready to find out. Emily stared at her phone for several seconds, her heart pounding in her chest as she reread Samuel's message. "I would like to see you tonight." Those simple words filled her with nervous anticipation. She typed and deleted her reply 3 times before finally sending. Of course, I will be there. She spent the rest of the afternoon pacing around her small apartment, her thoughts tangled in a web of curiosity and emotion. What did he want to talk about? Was it something serious? Or was it simply a friendly meeting between two people whose lives had unexpectedly intertwined? When evening came, Emily arrived at the private dining room Samuel had reserved in one of the city's most elegant restaurants. The soft glow of candlelight reflected off the polished glassware, and the low murmur of background music filled the air. Samuel was already seated, looking healthier than she had ever seen him. His recovery had been remarkable, and tonight, dressed in a dark suit, he looked every bit the man he used to be, a figure of quiet strength and grace. When he saw her, his face broke into a warm smile. "Emily," he said, standing to greet her. "You look wonderful." She blushed slightly and smiled back. "Thank you, Samuel. It is good to see you out of the hospital." They sat down, and for a while, their conversation flowed easily. They talked about the gallery's progress, about the paintings she was preparing for her grand opening, and about the things they had both learned from their time together. But as the evening went on, the tone of their conversation shifted. Samuel grew quiet for a moment, his eyes fixed on the flickering candle between them. "Emily," he began slowly, "I wanted to tell you something I should have said a long time ago." Emily's heart skipped a beat. "What is it?" she asked softly. Samuel took a deep breath. "When I was in that hospital bed, I had given up. After my wife passed away, I shut myself off from the world. I thought money could fill the emptiness, but it only made me feel more alone. Then you came along. You treated me like a human being, not a name on a chart or a man with a fortune. You reminded me what kindness feels like. You brought me back to life." Emily felt tears sting her eyes. "Samuel, I was just doing my job," she whispered. He shook his head. "No, Emily. You did so much more than that. You cared when no one else did. You stayed late. You talked to me. You reminded me what it means to live again." He paused, his gaze steady. "And I realized something. Somewhere along the way, I started looking forward to seeing you. You became the reason I wanted to wake up every day." Emily's breath caught in her throat. "Samuel," she began, but he held up his hand gently. "I know this may come as a surprise," he said, his tone calm but sincere. "I do not expect anything in return. I just needed you to know how much you mean to me." For a moment, neither of them spoke. The world outside seemed to fade away, leaving only the two of them in that quiet, candlelit space. Emily's mind raced, her emotions swirling between disbelief, gratitude, and something deeper, something she had been afraid to name. Finally, she spoke, her voice trembling slightly. "Samuel, I never expected this. You have done so much for me already. You gave me a chance when I had nothing. You believed in me when I stopped believing in myself." "I do not know what to say." Samuel smiled, a soft, genuine smile that reached his eyes. "You do not have to say anything," he said gently. "Just know that I am here, and I care about you deeply." They spent the rest of the evening talking about life, about love, and about the strange way fate brings two people together when they least expect it. By the time Emily left the restaurant, her heart was full, but her mind was a storm. She had not planned for this. She had not expected to fall for the man she once knew only as a patient. Yet, as she walked through the cool night air, she could not deny the warmth spreading through her chest. The following days were a blur of preparation as her gallery's opening drew closer. Samuel continued to visit, always offering encouragement, always reminding her how far she had come. But their relationship had changed. Every glance, every conversation carried an unspoken tenderness that neither of them dared to define. One evening, as she was hanging the final painting on the gallery wall, Samuel arrived unexpectedly. He stood behind her, watching quietly as she adjusted the frame. When she turned, their eyes met, and for a moment, the world fell silent. "You have made something beautiful, Emily," he said softly. "This place is a reflection of your heart." Emily smiled, her voice barely a whisper. "I could not have done it without you." Samuel stepped closer, his gaze unwavering. "You could have. You just needed someone to remind you how strong you already were." And as the lights from the gallery shimmered across the polished floors, Emily realized that this was not just about art or dreams anymore. It was about healing, about finding light after darkness, and about two souls who had found each other when they both needed it most. The grand opening of Emily's art gallery was finally here. The soft hum of conversation and the clinking of glasses filled the air as people moved through the space, admiring the artwork on the walls. Emily stood near the entrance, her heart swelling with pride as she watched the guests enjoy the collection she had poured her heart into. This was her dream, and it was no longer just a dream, it was real. Yet, despite the excitement and the joy that filled the room, there was a quiet tension in the back of her mind. She couldn't shake the feeling that something was about to change, and she wasn't sure if she was ready for it. The door to the gallery opened, and Samuel stepped inside, his presence immediately noticeable. His sharp suit and the quiet confidence in his step drew the attention of the room, but it was the way he looked at Emily that made her heart skip a beat. He was there for her, not as a benefactor, not as someone who had helped her make her dream come true, but as someone who truly cared about her. As he approached, Emily felt her breath catch in her throat. She had been so focused on getting everything perfect for tonight that she hadn't stopped to consider how she truly felt about Samuel. But now, seeing him here, standing before her in this moment, everything became clear. He was more than just a man who had offered her financial support. He was the person who had helped her find herself again, the one who had shown her that there was more to life than simply surviving. "Your gallery is beautiful, Emily," Samuel said, his voice soft but full of admiration. "You've created something truly special." Emily smiled, trying to hold back the emotions that threatened to spill over. "Thank you, Samuel," she replied, her voice shaky. "I couldn't have done it without you." He smiled back, his eyes warm, but there was something deeper in his gaze, something that spoke of the bond they had built together over the past few months. They stood in silence for a moment, simply taking in the atmosphere of the gallery. It was a moment of peace, a moment that felt almost surreal to Emily. She had worked so hard for this, and now that it was here, she couldn't believe it was real. "I've been thinking about what you said, Samuel," Emily said, breaking the silence. "About chasing my dreams, about not letting fear hold me back. I've realized that you were right. I've spent so much of my life running from things, running from my dreams, running from the truth of who I am. But tonight, I'm not running anymore." Samuel looked at her, his expression softening. "I'm proud of you, Emily," he said quietly. "You've come so far, and you've done it all on your own. You're stronger than you realize." Emily felt a wave of emotion wash over her. She had never imagined that a moment like this would come. She had always thought she wasn't capable of achieving something like this, of finding the courage to follow her heart. But Samuel had been there for her every step of the way, offering support, encouragement, and a listening ear when she needed it the most. "There's something I've been wanting to say," Samuel continued, his voice barely above a whisper. Emily turned to him, her heart racing. "What is it?" she asked, her curiosity piqued. He took a deep breath before speaking again. "I care about you, Emily, more than I've ever cared about anyone in a long time. I know we've been through a lot together, and I don't want to rush anything, but I want you to know that I'm here for you, for whatever you need." Emily's breath caught in her throat, and she felt a rush of warmth spread through her chest. She had known that Samuel cared for her, but hearing him say it out loud made everything feel real. She had never expected to find love in the way she had. It wasn't the kind of love she had imagined, a love based on grand gestures or fairy tale moments. It was the kind of love that had grown slowly over time, built on kindness, respect, and a deep emotional connection. It was a love that had healed both of them in ways they never could have anticipated. "Samuel, Emily began, but before she could finish her sentence, Samuel gently cupped her, face in his hands, his thumb brushing her cheek. "You don't have to say anything right now," he whispered. "I just wanted you to know that I'm here, and I care about you more than you know." Emily's heart was racing now, but she felt a sense of peace settle over her. For the first time in a long time, she wasn't afraid. She wasn't afraid of the future, of what might happen next, or of what it would mean for her to accept Samuel's feelings. She knew that whatever came next, they would face it together. As the evening continued, Emily found herself lost in the joy of the night, surrounded by friends, family, and those who had supported her along the way. But there was something different now. She had no fear of the unknown. She was ready to embrace it, to embrace her future with Samuel by her side. And for the first time in her life, she felt like she was exactly where she was meant to be. As the weeks passed, Emily's gallery flourished, drawing in crowds of art enthusiasts and collectors eager to see her unique work. Each day, she poured more of herself into her passion, organizing exhibitions, curating new pieces, and making connections with people who shared her vision. Samuel's support never wavered. He checked in often, always encouraging her to keep pushing forward. But his presence had become more than that. He was no longer just a benefactor, but someone who had become an integral part of her life, someone whose care and affection she had grown to cherish. They spent more time together outside of the gallery, going for walks in the park, having quiet dinners, and talking late into the night. Samuel had become her rock, someone she could rely on, and the feelings she had for him only deepened. But as much as they had both found comfort in each other, Emily couldn't shake the nagging feeling that something still lingered between them, an unspoken tension, a question neither of them dared to ask. Emily had come to realize that she loved Samuel deeply, but she wasn't sure if he felt the same way. She had never expected to find herself in a relationship with someone like him, and the idea of being vulnerable, of opening herself completely to him, terrified her. But she knew that if they were to move forward together, there could be no more secrets, no more pretending. She had to know. One evening, as they sat on the balcony of Samuel's penthouse, looking out over the twinkling city skyline, Emily turned to him, her heart pounding in her chest. "Samuel," she said softly, her voice barely above a whisper, "I need to ask you something." He turned toward her, his gaze steady and kind, as though he had been waiting for her to ask. "What is it?" he asked, his tone gentle. Emily took a deep breath, gathering her courage. "I need to know how you feel about me. I need to know if this, what we have, is real to you. Because I can't keep going like this, unsure." There was a long pause as Samuel studied her, his expression unreadable. For a moment, Emily wondered if she had made a mistake, if she had pushed too hard, too soon. But then, slowly, Samuel reached out and took her hand in his. "Emily," he began, his voice low and full of sincerity, "I care about you more than words can express. From the moment you walked into my life, everything changed. You brought light back into my world when I thought it had faded forever. I've never felt this way about anyone before, and I know that I want to spend my future with you." Emily's breath caught in her throat as his words settled in her heart. She had been waiting for this, for him to say the words she needed to hear, but hearing them out loud still felt like a dream. "I love you, Emily," he said, his thumb gently brushing over her knuckles. "I know we've had our doubts, our fears, but I believe in us. I believe in what we have." A tear slid down Emily's cheek as she finally allowed herself to feel the relief and happiness she had been holding back for so long. "I love you too, Samuel," she whispered, her voice filled with emotion. "I've been so scared, so afraid of what this might mean, but now I know." They sat together in the quiet of the evening, the weight of their confession hanging in the air like a beautiful promise. For the first time, Emily felt truly at peace, knowing that they were in this together, ready to face whatever the future held. The days that followed were filled with a new sense of joy and anticipation. Emily and Samuel's relationship blossomed as they continued to support one another, both personally and professionally. Samuel helped her take the gallery to new heights, using his business expertise to attract more investors and expand her reach, while Emily brought her creativity and passion to everything they did. They made the perfect team. But as they grew closer, Emily couldn't help but think back to where it all began. The hospital room where they had first met, when Samuel had been nothing more than a lonely, recovering patient, and she had been a nurse just doing her job. The contrast between then and now was staggering, and yet, it felt like everything had come full circle. They had both found healing in each other, both found a sense of purpose and love they hadn't even known they needed. One night, as they walked home from dinner, Samuel stopped suddenly, turning to Emily with a serious look on his face. "There's something I need to tell you," he said, his voice tinged with emotion. Emily looked up at him, her heart skipping a beat. "What is it?" she asked, her brow furrowing in concern. Samuel took her hands in his expression softening. "I know I've said that I believe in us, but I want to make it official," he said, his voice steady. "I want to spend the rest of my life with you. Will you marry me, Emily?" Emily's heart stopped. Her eyes welled up with tears as she looked at him, unable to believe what she was hearing. "Yes," she whispered, the word coming out as a breathless, joyful cry. "Yes, I will marry you." And in that moment, surrounded by the bustling streets and the quiet hum of the city, Emily knew that everything she had ever dreamed of was now within reach. They were no longer just two people whose paths had crossed by chance. They were a team, partners in life, ready to build a future together, full of love, art, and endless possibilities. The days leading up to Emily and Samuel's wedding were filled with excitement and anticipation. The gallery was thriving, and with Samuel's business expertise, Emily was able to expand her reach even further, bringing in new clients and investors. She was living her dream, the one she had fought so hard for. But as much as the success of her career filled her with pride, it was her relationship with Samuel that brought her the deepest joy. They had grown closer than she ever imagined, their connection more profound than any bond she had ever experienced. They were partners, not only in business but in life, and every day felt like a new adventure waiting to be discovered together. Their wedding day arrived in the blink of an eye, and Emily could hardly believe it was happening. The soft white flowers that adorned the ceremony hall, the delicate lighting, and the quiet hum of excited whispers filled the air. Samuel stood at the altar, looking every bit the man she had come to love so deeply. His smile was full of warmth, and as Emily walked down the aisle, her heart swelled with love. Samuel's eyes met hers, and in that moment, it felt like everything else faded away. It was just the two of them, standing at the beginning of their new life together. "You look beautiful," Samuel whispered as she reached the altar, his voice thick with emotion. Emily smiled, unable to hold back the tears that threatened to fall. "So do you," she whispered back. They exchanged vows, promises to love and support each other through whatever life threw their way. And when it came time to say, "I do," Emily could barely contain the joy that flooded her heart. She had never imagined her life would turn out this way, that she would meet a man who cared for her so deeply, who believed in her when she didn't believe in herself. As they sealed their vows with a kiss, the crowd erupted in applause, but in Emily's world, nothing else mattered but the love that had brought them to this moment. The reception that followed was an intimate celebration of their love, filled with laughter, dancing, and the people who had supported them along the way. It was a night of joy and laughter, but as the evening wore on, Emily found herself reflecting on how far she had come. She had once been a woman with no direction, struggling to make ends meet, unsure of her worth. Now, standing beside the man she loved, she knew she had found her place in the world. Samuel had been the light in her darkness, the person who had believed in her even when she couldn't see her own potential. And now, together, they were building something beautiful, something that was theirs. As the night drew to a close, Samuel took her hand and led her outside, away from the crowd. The night sky above them was filled with stars, and for a moment, the world felt still and quiet. "I'm so proud of you," Samuel said softly, his voice filled with love. "You've come so far, Emily. I know you're going to do incredible things, and I'll be here every step of the way, cheering you on." Emily smiled, her heart swelling with love and gratitude. "I couldn't have done any of it without you," she replied, squeezing his hand. "You've shown me what it means to truly live, to follow my dreams without fear. And now, we get to do it together." Samuel kissed her gently on the forehead, his arms wrapping around her in a protective embrace. "We're in this together, always," he whispered. As they stood there under the stars, holding each other close, Emily realized that she had finally found her place. Not just in the world, but in the heart of the man who had given her everything she needed to believe in herself. They were building a future together, one where love, kindness, and dreams would always guide them. And for the first time in her life, Emily felt at peace, knowing that the life she had always wanted was now a reality. The journey that had started with a simple act of kindness, a chance meeting at the hospital, had led them here, to this moment. And as she looked up at the stars, she knew that the best was yet to come. The months that followed were a whirlwind of excitement, growth, and love. Emily and Samuel continued to build their life together, each day feeling like a new chapter in a story that neither of them had expected but both cherished deeply. Emily's gallery thrived, gaining recognition in the art world, while Samuel, ever the quiet and supportive partner, stood by her side, helping with the business side of things. Their partnership had become more than just professional. It was a seamless blending of two lives, two dreams, and two hearts. They spent countless hours working side by side, whether it was curating new collections, attending charity events, or simply enjoying quiet moments at home. Their relationship deepened as they grew more comfortable with each other's vulnerabilities. Samuel had become her biggest cheerleader, encouraging her to reach for even greater heights, and Emily had given Samuel something he had never realized he needed. Someone to care for him unconditionally, someone who saw beyond his wealth and status, someone who loved him for who he truly was. One evening, as they sat together in their living room, their feet tucked under soft blankets, Samuel looked over at Emily with a thoughtful expression. "You know," he began slowly, "when I first met you, I never imagined this is where we'd be. I was just a man in need of a little kindness. And you gave me so much more." Emily smiled, looking up from her book. "I don't think either of us knew where this was going, but I'm so grateful for everything. I never would have thought I'd be here, happy, running my own gallery, married to the most wonderful person." Samuel reached over, taking her hand in his. "And I never would have thought I'd find someone who made me feel alive again. You brought something back into my life that I didn't even realize I was missing, hope. You've given me the courage to live fully, to be open to everything life has to offer." Emily's heart swelled with love as she looked at him. "And you've helped me become the woman I've always wanted to be. You believed in me when I couldn't believe in myself." They sat in comfortable silence, the weight of their words settling between them, before Samuel spoke again. "I've been thinking," he said, his voice soft but serious. "We've accomplished so much together, but there's one more thing I want to do." Emily raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "What is it?" she asked. "I want to make this more permanent," Samuel said, his expression intense but filled with love. "I want us to start a family." Emily's heart skipped a beat. The thought of having children, of raising a family with Samuel, was something she had never considered so soon. But as she looked into his eyes, she saw the sincerity and love there. It felt right. It felt like the next step in their journey. "Are you sure?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Samuel smiled gently, his eyes never leaving hers. "I've never been more sure of anything in my life. I want to share this life with you, every step of it. I want us to build a future together, not just as a couple, but as a family." Emily's heart overflowed with emotion. She had always dreamed of having a family, of creating a life filled with love and laughter, but she had never imagined it could be this real, this soon. She nodded, her voice thick with emotion. Yes, I want that too. I want to have a family with you." And so, they made plans for the future, a future where their love would grow, where their dreams would evolve, and where they would begin to build the family they had always wanted. As the months passed, Emily and Samuel's lives continued to flourish. Their relationship deepened, and their bond became stronger with each passing day. Together, they navigated the ups and downs of life, always knowing that they had each other to lean on. Their love had started in the most unexpected of ways, but it had blossomed into something beautiful and lasting. Emily had once been a woman unsure of her place in the world, unsure of her worth. But now, standing beside Samuel, she knew who she was. She was a woman who had found love, purpose, and a future she had always dreamed of. As she looked at Samuel, watching him speak excitedly about their future together, Emily felt a sense of peace and fulfillment. They had built something incredible, something that neither of them had expected but both treasured more than anything else in the world. Their love had been tested, had grown stronger, and had led them here, to a future filled with endless possibilities. And as they moved forward, hand in hand, Emily knew that the best chapters of their story were still to come. As the years passed, Emily and Samuel's love continued to grow, solidifying the foundation of a life they had both built together. Their gallery was now a household name, with multiple locations and a team of artists who shared Emily's passion for creativity and community. Samuel had stepped back from the business side, allowing Emily to take full charge, and she had blossomed into a leader, a visionary who inspired others with her determination and heart. But while their professional lives were thriving, it was their personal life that brought them the deepest joy. The house they had built together was filled with laughter, love, and a warmth that made it feel like home. They had started their family, just as they had always dreamed. Their first child, a daughter named Lily, was born on a crisp autumn morning. Her arrival filled their hearts with an overwhelming sense of love, and they both knew that their journey together had only just begun. As they watched Lily grow, their hearts swelled with pride. Samuel was the most loving father, gentle and attentive, always making sure that their daughter felt safe and cherished. Emily, too, was a mother in her element, her nurturing spirit and creativity bringing a unique light to their family. Their second child, a son named Max, followed a few years later, completing their family and filling their home with even more joy and love. Samuel and Emily had found their balance, their rhythm, and they knew they were exactly where they were meant to be. Through the years, they continued to support each other, growing together as individuals and as a couple. Samuel never stopped believing in Emily, always there to encourage her when the challenges of running a business or being a parent seemed too overwhelming. And Emily, in turn, had given Samuel something he never thought he needed: a family, a sense of belonging, and a deep, unconditional love. The couple had made a habit of spending Sunday mornings at the park, their two children running ahead, laughing and playing, while they walked hand in hand, talking about everything and nothing. These moments, simple yet perfect, were the ones they cherished most. On one of these mornings, as they walked through the park, Samuel turned to Emily with a thoughtful expression. "You know," he said, his voice soft but full of emotion, "I never could have imagined that my life would turn out like this. When I first met you, I was a man lost in his own grief, not sure where I was going. And now, here I am, with everything I ever wanted: love, family, and a future full of possibilities." Emily smiled, squeezing his hand. "I feel the same way," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "I never imagined this life, but I wouldn't change a thing. You've given me everything, Samuel, more than I ever thought I deserved." Samuel stopped walking for a moment, turning to face her. He cupped her face gently in his hands, his eyes filled with love. "You deserve everything, Emily. You always have. You gave me back my life, my hope, and my heart. You've made my world brighter than I ever thought possible." Emily's heart swelled with love as she gazed up at him. She had never imagined that her life could be this full, this beautiful. When she had first met Samuel, she had been struggling to find her place, unsure of her future, unsure of her worth. But now, standing beside him, with their children laughing in the distance, she knew that everything had changed. They had both found their place, in each other, and in the life they had created together. "I love you," she whispered, her voice barely above a whisper, but filled with all the depth of her heart. "I love you too," Samuel replied, his voice thick with emotion. And in that moment, under the soft morning sun, surrounded by their family and the life they had built together, Emily knew that their journey was far from over. There would be more challenges, more obstacles to overcome, but they would face them together, just as they always had. Their love had been tested, had been nurtured, and had grown stronger with each passing day. And as they continued to walk hand in hand through life, Emily knew that this was the love that would last a lifetime, the kind of love that not only changes everything, but also lasts forever.